Rick, thanks very much. Happening now, an exclusive interview with the Vice President, Joe Biden. He says most Americans don't care what his predecessor, Dick Cheney, has to say. This hour, the VP opens up and fights back on the war and the economy. Vice President Joe Biden isn't showing any hesitation today about flatly rejecting charges that the Obama White House is dithering. Biden talked about the administration's Afghan war strategy and the economy in an exclusive CNN interview, and he had some choice words for the man behind the dithering charge. That would be the former Vice President, Dick Cheney. Let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Ed Henry, get a chance to sit down exclusively with the Vice President today. And I take it, Eddie didn't mince any words.
Wolf, he didn't. I covered the Vice President a long time when he was in the Senate. As you know, he's an old-school pal, really loves the game, will, throw an arm around you, put a finger in your chest to make a point, really likes to speak bluntly, and sometimes that bluntness gets him in trouble around here these days, but other times he's just saying what his colleagues are thinking, but maybe won't say out loud. So my ears perked up when he told me that he thinks that the economy has hit bottom and is now coming back. I have not heard President Obama, other top officials, be that blunt. They've always been very careful about calibrating expectations about the economy, but he sounded a little more bullish today, even as he made clear that there are still a lot of people hurting, and he also, in fact, said it's not just people feeling a recession. He used the word depression, that some people almost feel like it's a depression. And so do you think we've hit bottom?
Oh, I'm confident we've hit bottom. The question is, look, we're not going to be satisfied, Ed, till I'm able to sit in front of you and say, look, this month we grew jobs. The net effect is growing jobs. It doesn't say a lot to people to say, there would have been 1 million more or 1.6 million more jobs lost, but for this. My grandpop used to have an expression, Ed. We lived in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He said, when the guy in Dixon City, a suburb, is out of work, it's an economic slowdown. When your brother-in-law is out of work, it's a recession. When you're out of work, it's a depression. And it's a depression for millions of people.
Now, he was also blunt about admitting that there's sort of a disconnect for some Americans. They just do not feel this recovery coming. But he insisted that these new figures in the last couple of days, that there was economic growth in the last quarter of 3.5%. He said that's a hopeful sign. And he said flatly that is because of the stimulus that President Obama has put him in charge of implementing, Wolf.
I know you had a good exchange with him on the former Vice President Dick Cheney's dithering charge when it comes to the war in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. What's interesting, the reason why the Vice President agreed to do this is we're doing a series starting Monday on American Morning about the president's inner circle. And clearly this Vice President is one of the president's most influential advisors, especially on foreign policy. No topic more urgent than what's going on right now in Afghanistan. October was the deadliest month there. And the Vice President told me he thinks the violence has spiked there because the Taliban is trying to take advantage of what's a really messy and chaotic election process. He said the president needs to take the right amount of time to get the strategy right, and he insisted that Dick Cheney's criticisms are flat out wrong. Dick Cheney is saying, your predecessor in this office is saying the president's failing that test because he says he's dithering and that you and the president are dragging your feet on this decision.
I like Dick Cheney personally, but I really don't care what Dick Cheney thinks. And I'm not sure a lot of Americans do. Look at the policy they left us. Look at the policy of neglect they left us in Afghanistan. Look at the policy we inherited in terms of their foreign policy. Look, I think the president is doing exactly what any president should do. And by the way, the military thinks that too.
Now, the Vice President was also blunt in following up on what Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said today about getting tough with Pakistan, saying the Pakistani government knows where al-Qaeda leaders are. They have to step up and go on the attack there. He was also talking about health care reform and was also, frankly, blunt, opened up about some of the gaffes that have seemed to maybe have plagued him in the early days. He thinks he's put them behind him. We're going to have a lot more of that interview Monday on American Morning, Wolf.